Pals and Pals. I'm your host Tanner. Today's episode is about Chronicles of Darkness, a dark storytelling game put out by our friends on Path Publishing. This is an overview, not a review, meaning that it's more about the rules than the book. However, somebody in your group needs to purchase this book, probably your DM or storyteller, to truly grasp the mechanics of this game system. Also, if we don't buy it, they don't make it. So let's support them. They make a good product and they deserve it. They deserve our money. In this game, you play as a mortal in a dark, broken world. Now, something strange or something supernatural is happening to you. It's very much a story-driven game. Combat takes a back seat. It's a lot about the story, and I personally like it. But if you like combat, this is probably not your thing. Not that it doesn't have it, but it's not driven to the same pace as D&D or something along those lines. Now, how do we play Chronicles of Darkness, you might be asking? The core mechanic is simple. You determine how many dots your character gets for the appropriate roll, apply modifiers, then roll a 10-sided dice. If you roll an 8 or higher on a die, it counts as a success. If you roll one success, that means your character succeeded in their action. If you rolled no successes, that means your character failed. Note that every time a 10 is rolled, that you will get to roll another dice and count that. Even if that dice rolls up another 10, you get to roll another dice. But what about if you have no dice? If you have no dice, you get a chance die, which is 1d10, and you roll that, and if you get anything other than a 10, it's a dramatic failure. If you get a 10, it's a success, and you don't get to re-roll that. So, good luck with that. So, character concept is really important, because if you got a concept down, you know what you're doing, it'll make character creation so much easier. And you really need to flush out your character. What are his flaws? What are his merits? And I mean that as in a concept of a character. Is this guy prone to a bad temper, but deep down he's a good guy, or is he just a scumbag? I mean, is it she having an affair? Is she religious? Is she not? Who are their friends? Who are their enemies? Where did they go to school? What's the worst thing that happened to them? Have they had any accidents? Just kind of get a good feel for the kind of character you want to play. If you're looking for more of a horror touch and more of a gritty survival, you might want to lay off firearms, because that's where my players usually go. Is they love to be proficient in firearms and weapons and security guard or ex-military. And if you really steer away from those archetypes, you can actually have some pretty good role playing and some pretty scary moments for the characters. Do they drive? Do they not? Who are their grandparents? What ethnicity are they? Just general stuff will help you out more. To define what relationships they have and they don't have just helps. Now you got your character concept and you're ready to go to the next step. Alright, so now that we got the concept under control, clear in our mind, the best way to learn the rest of the rules is to actually make a character from this point. Because once you have a character, you understand what you need to know and how to play. It'll be self-explanatory. So, now that we have this concept clear in our heads of this character that we're going to be running, we need to come up with anchors. And anchors are your vice and virtue. Now, virtues are things like loyalty, truthful, patience, that sort of thing, where vices are anger, greed, that sort of thing. And you need to pick those to kind of flush out your characters, but they also give you other bonuses, such as regaining willpower points. And we'll go into that in a little bit. Whenever you act on one of your vices, you regain a single willpower point, and whenever you act on your virtue, you regain all of your will points, which can be done twice, which can be used twice per game session. Willpower points can be spent to modify any roll you make. If you can only spend one per action, and they improve your dice pool by 3. And they can also be spent on resistances. So if you have to roll for a resistance, but they only add 2 die to your pool when you use it. Alright, now we're ready to move on to attributes. There are 9 attributes. Each one falls into 3 categories of mental, physical, or social. Now, your character starts with 1 dot in each. If that character didn't have a dot and an attribute, they would be disabled in some way. Now, we need to go back to our character concept, and we choose which each category our character falls into. Now we pick a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary for our characters. And how we do that is we pick one of those 3 categories. Now, if we pick a bookworm for our character, he's going to have a primary in intelligence. And what that means is we get 5 points to divvy up however we want within those 3 attributes underneath that category of mental. And then we would pick probably our weakest category, and I'm going to say our bookworm probably isn't that strong or fast. He spends most of his time reading, and any free time he gets, he just spends it with his friends. So we would pick that as our tertiary, and that's going to give us 3 points to spend in that category among those 3 attributes however we want. And then, of course, we have our secondary, which leaves us with social. And we would divvy up 4 points in that category among those attributes however we want. Now, skills are pretty much the same way, and they're divvied up into 3 categories as well, when they are physical, mental, and you guessed it, social. Now, you do not start with 1 dot in any skill. If you don't, you just don't have that skill. And you get 11 for your primary, and 7 for your secondary, and 4 for your tertiary. That leaves us specialties. You get 3 specialties in your character creation. And specialty gives you an extra dice pool on a certain skill when you're collecting a pool of dice to roll against something. And they further define a skill. Like if you have computers, you can have a specialty in hacking, and whenever your character hacks, they get that extra die. Or it could be firearms and rifles. So if your character is particularly more skilled at rifles, he gets that extra dice whenever he uses a rifle. Now we have merits, and you get 7 points to buy whatever merits you want. And there's 5 categories of them: mental, physical, and social, supernatural, and fighting. As a DM or a player, hopefully as a player, you will be careful to kind of make a balance, because not all of these merits are balanced. They're more so balanced than in their predecessor of New World of Darkness, and I appreciate that, but you still have to watch out for retainer or gunslinger or certain, fighting styles, because they can really unbalance the gameplay between characters, and that's just something to be mindful of. The next step and the final step of the process is to do your advantages. Now, your advantages are your speed, your health, how much willpower you have, that sort of thing, and it's all laid out for you on page 27 of your book. Now, I'm not going to explain it to you. It's easy. Just look it in the book. You should have it if you're going to play this game. Enough said. Now I'm going to talk about beats. Beats are a new system, and your character gets 5 beats, and they get 1 experience point. Now, it's important to note that to buy an attribute or a merit, the cost has changed from the predecessor of New World of Darkness, so it's much more balanced, and I personally like the system. Now, every time you drop a condition, you get a beat. Every time you finish the session, you get a beat. Every time you fail, you can choose to make it a dramatic failure and you get a beat. Every time you complete an aspiration, you get a beat. So aspirations are usually short time goals, and they can be something like, I want to survive the night, I need to find a weapon, make a friend, and so on and so forth. Now, a long-term goal is fine for a campaign, so it could be as simple as, I want to find whatever happened to my sister, and that's good, but you should only really have maybe 1 long-term goal or aspiration like that. If you're shooting a one-off, I wouldn't allow my players to take something like that. On to integrity. Now, integrity is your character's mental health or their psyche, or maybe their health of their spirit, and it reflects about how much stress that character can really take. And when they risk losing points in it, it's called a breaking point. A breaking point is something that is too stressful or unnatural. Maybe your character sees someone murdered in front of their eyes, or they see something supernatural or something strange that they can't explain, and they risk losing a point of integrity. Now, the roll is determined by their integrity score modifier plus resolve and composure. Success means that they coped with it, that they came out or rationalized it, or that they can handle it. Failure means that they lose a dot of integrity and they gain a condition. Now, conditions are really based on what had happened to them. Now, if they saw something scary, they might be shaking. If they did something like they murdered someone, they might get the guilty condition. So your DM or storyteller will, last but not least, there are actions. Alright, now there are 4 types of actions: instant, reflexive, contested, and extended. Now, instant actions are something that happen that is initiated by your character, and they're usually skills or abilities, something along those lines. Reflexive actions are something that your character rolls, usually a resistant roll to an action that happened to them. So that action, if you're rolling a resistant roll or a reflexive action, your character is not actually going to count that against them during their next turn. However, the person that initiated that roll will count against their action for the turn. Extended is a action that a person has to take, or character has to take, each turn to keep something going. Like maybe they're holding a door open, or they have to make a computer hack, and that hack is so complex that it takes time, and to show that they have to keep that up, and maybe something else is happening during those turns. Now, contested roll is usually 2 people roll, and whoever gets the most success, they win. Alright, that's it, guys. If you found this helpful, or you liked it, or you're feeling generous, hit the like button and subscribe. Alright, let me know if you want to see a certain book or something, or if you have a question. I'd love to answer it. Alright, I'll catch you pals and gals later.